Welcome to Urban Legends, and in tonight's video, we'll be heading to Scotland in the 1950s, where a particularly nasty vampire was sighted and then hunted down by the local children. This is the remarkable story of the Gorbals Vampire. The Gorbals is a large district in Glasgow, and it was infamous in the 1950s for its dire poverty, overcrowded conditions, and social challenges. Dilapidated tenement buildings often housed multiple families in cramped and unsanitary one-room homes. These living conditions fostered health problems, including tuberculosis and other infectious diseases. Crime rates in the Gorbals were particularly high, fueled by extreme poverty and social dislocation. Despite these hardships, the community spirit in the Gorbals remained strong. Neighbors often supported one another, sharing resources and helping in times of need. This resilience and camaraderie would unite the local people to face a new challenge, one which they had not seen before. In September of 1954, tales began to circulate about a strange and dangerous humanoid creature which had been seen at night, lurking in the dark streets and alleyways. It was described as being 7 feet tall, possessing red eyes that glowed in the dark, and pale white skin, but most disturbingly, it was said to have long iron teeth. This figure was known to move swiftly and disappear into thin air if spotted. The legend grew rapidly, and it wasn't confined to just the Gorbals. Stories of the man with the iron teeth were spreading to other parts of Glasgow. Children in the schoolyards told of how he took people in the night, and parents were terrified that a real vampire was out there. Mass hysteria followed, and local residents feared leaving their homes at night. Things became worse in mid-September when rumors spread that 2 local boys had gone missing, and that they had likely been taken by the creature. The local police were quick to dispel these rumors, stating that they had no knowledge of anybody going missing and for everybody to remain calm. The local school headmasters reaffirmed this, but it did no good. The children of the Gorbals had made up their minds. They had had enough. The vampire needed to be destroyed, and they knew just where to find it. The Southern Necropolis is a huge Victorian cemetery located in the heart of the Gorbals district. Established in 1840 to accommodate Glasgow's growing population, this sprawling burial ground spans 21 acres and is the final resting place for over 250,000 individuals. People claim to have seen the vampire within the necropolis. With its Gothic architecture, numerous headstones, sprawling trees, and long winding paths, it's no wonder that this was the place said to house the vampire. On the evening of September 23, 1954, children from all over the Gorbals gathered together and marched to the necropolis with only one thing in mind, and that was to kill the vampire. As the sun went down, a crowd of over 200 children, some as young as 5, and others in their early teens, descended upon the Victorian graveyard armed with sticks, stones, knives, and even homemade torches fashioned from rags and bottles. Their chatter carried an undercurrent of fear, but the collective determination to destroy the vampire spurred them on. Climbing over the graveyard gates or squeezing through gaps in the iron bars, the children spilled into the sprawling cemetery. The group split into smaller clusters, each scouring a different section of the graveyard. They peered into mausoleums, probed behind tombstones, and shouted warnings to one another of possible sightings. They believed the vampire was lurking somewhere in the darkness, waiting to claim its next victim. Occasionally, someone's imagination would get the better of them, and a scream would pierce the night, sending waves of excitement and fear rippling through the crowd. Each shadow or rustle of leaves in the wind became a potential sign of the creature. The children's presence attracted attention. Passers-by stopped to watch in confusion as more and more young hunters arrived, their numbers then swelling to way over 200. News of the strange scene quickly spread, and adults began gathering on the outskirts of the cemetery, trying to make sense of the commotion. Eventually, the police were summoned to the site. As officers arrived, the children's search continued unabated. Some resisted attempts to be led away, insisting they had to find and destroy the monster. The police, initially unsure how to handle the bizarre situation, began carefully escorting the younger children home, often to puzzled or exasperated parents who had no idea where their children had gone. Older children, more resistant to the idea of abandoning their mission, were gradually persuaded to leave the cemetery under police supervision. By late evening, the crowd had mostly thinned out, and relative calm was restored to the southern necropolis. However, the vampire hunt did not end entirely that night. Over the following days, smaller groups of children returned to the graveyard, still intent on finding the creature, but this eventually stopped as the weeks went on. No arrests were made during the Gorbals Vampire hunt. Authorities treated the incident as a case of mass hysteria rather than actual criminal activity. Efforts were focused on understanding the psychological and cultural factors that spurred the event rather than punishing those involved. The immediate aftermath also revealed no missing boys or any actual evidence of a vampire. However, public and official reactions were intense. Adults were bewildered by the children's obsession with the creature and alarmed by their unsupervised late-night activities. The press sensationalized the story, attributing the bizarre event to cultural influences, particularly American horror comics, which were becoming increasingly popular in the UK. Titles such as Tales from the Crypt were singled out for their graphic and lurid content. This led to a national moral panic about the effects of such media on children. Politicians, educators, and clergy were quick to blame American horror comics for corrupting the youth. This event contributed to the establishment of the Children and Young Persons Act of 1955, which banned the sale of violent or horrifying comics to minors in the UK. The incident was cited as a key example of how media could incite hysteria and inappropriate behavior among impressionable children. The Gorbals Vampire incident remains a curious example of how folklore, peer influence, and cultural fears can ignite mass behavior. Though horror comics bore the brunt of the blame, subsequent analyses suggested that the children were likely responding to a combination of local myths and societal anxieties. It also underscored the powerful role of storytelling, both oral and written, in shaping collective beliefs. Today, the event is remembered as a peculiar moment in Glasgow's history, blending myth, media, and moral panic into a unique cultural phenomenon. The Gorbals Vampire has inspired various books, comics, a stage show, and countless documentaries. What do you think about the incident? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.